It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome one of the premier big men of the wrestling realm. He's a 3-time world champion in the WWE and a 12-time world tag team champion. A fearless competitor in the squared circle, Ric Flair once called him the best in the world.
That's gotta be Kane! That's gotta be Kane! Kane with the urn! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Kane, Bishop! Oh my God! For the love of God! Bishop's touched from the hell by Kane!
And he's winning in the political landscape, serving as the current mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. It's Glenn Jacobs, better known as Kane, the Big Red Machine. He joins this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN right now with your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another exciting edition of Listen In with KNN, presented by Fox Sports Radio. Of course, this is a sports talk radio show and podcast where I am your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, and I am super excited to welcome in today's guest. It's his first time on this very show. You all know him very, very well. He's doing a lot of great work out in Tennessee, but he goes by none other than the name Mayor Glenn Jacobs. He is a Republican mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, and many of you all, of course, know him as the WWE legend known as Kane, aka the Big Red Machine. So without further ado, I will bring him onto the show and we will get things started. Mayor Jacobs, how are you today?
Hey, Kelsey, I'm doing very well. You?
Oh no, we lost it. There we go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Good.
Sorry.
I'm great. So first off, I can hear you good. We're perfect. So first off, how are you feeling? How are you doing? I like to do a quick wellness check with all my guests.
I'm doing well, thank you. And you? How are you?
I'm great. Look, I have you on the show. We have a fun one planned, so it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And to get things started, I mean, you recently posted a video of you jumping into a pool on top of a floaty with the caption,
Two floaties. They were double stacked.
Oh, two of them. Oh my gosh. That's even better, even cooler. And then you had the caption, "I've still got it." I don't think you ever lost it, but oh my God. How great was that?
It was actually this past weekend, and my wife Crystal was filming at poolside as she often does, so she can catch me doing embarrassing things. And it was great though. The grandkids were there and no one thought I could do it. And I did have to edit the video because I missed a couple times and had of course had the floaties shoot out from underneath me and go all over the place. But that time I was able to land on both of them and kind of hold myself up. I was pretty proud about it. One of my greatest achievements, actually.
Nice. I love it. And please thank your wife for that wonderful video. It was such a joy.
I was
Such a
able to turn
great
it around. Like I said, that those are generally put on Facebook to embarrass me. So,
But see, you made a smile out of it. Now we can all laugh with you and not just at you, right? Which is
that's
always
right.
a
That's
positive
right.
thing. And then also, you've been busy. You've also been volunteering with Knox Mobile Meals, doing really great work in the community. So talk about that and how you've been kind of helping to uplift communities during this current time period.
Sure. Knox Mobile Meals is our version of Meals on Wheels, and
Right.
they deliver meals to shut-ins, and they do just wonderful work. Been working with them ever since I've been mayor for over a year now. Throughout this episode of COVID-19, they've, like many organizations and businesses have, they've had to somewhat alter their deliveries. They, for a while, had gone to just one day a week.
Right.
But the issue with that is your mobile meals and your Meals on Wheels, excuse me, they do more than just deliver meals.
Right.
They provide people with friendship, and people are lonely, so they give them companionship, and they do wellness checks as well, just like you did with me when we came onto the show.
Yeah.
So even though they were delivering the meals, I'm glad that they were able to get back now to delivering every day. And of course, as you can see, they put the safety and health of the folks that they serve as a priority. So it's a great organization. And of course, whether it's Meals on Wheels or Mobile Meals, whatever is in your community, please support them because they do great work.
That's so awesome. I love that you do that work, and it's very needed work at a time like this. And now let's get into it, Mayor. I mean, first off, can you talk about the current agenda and your mission statement as mayor of Knox County, especially in relation to the present circumstances that COVID-19 has presented as a global pandemic?
Well, sure. We just want Knox County to be the best place to live, work, and raise a family that it can be. And we don't want to compare ourselves to other places because every place has advantages, and we're all just different around the U.S. I live in Knox County because I think it's the greatest place in the world to live. I mean, when I was with WWE, I was traveling every week, went to a different part of the country, often a different part of the world. So I wasn't geographically confined as to where I could live by my job like most people are.
Right.
And I picked Knox County. My wife is from East Tennessee, and we've lived here 25 years. But I just love the place and never moved. It's just a great place, I think. But we've got, I'm sitting behind me, if you see me, is the Tennessee River. So we're right on the river. We have lots of outdoor recreational opportunities.
Nice.
We also are the home of the Oak Ridge National Laboratories. It's actually next door in an adjacent county, but it's about half an hour away, and that's the world's leading science and research laboratory. University of Tennessee, of course, is here, as well as the Tennessee Valley Authority, which does economic development throughout the Tennessee Valley. So we have lots of assets and really lots of opportunity here, and I think we're just scratching the surface with that. Of course, like every community, COVID-19 has had an impact on us. I think that we've been fortunate compared to some other places. Now, unfortunately, we are seeing our numbers are rising, our hospitalizations are rising. So that's something that we're having to deal with. And I think like all across the country and here too, everything, and I guess it's because it is a presidential election year, and everything is so politicized, and it seems like people are at their throats. And that's one thing that for me, it's very disheartening. And we don't, I don't think we're often respecting each other's opinions or decisions as much as we should, or we normally do. So I think that's one of the things that COVID-19, and we have people on different sides of the issue in many ways. And unfortunately now I've just seen people just,
go at each other's throats, right?
And I really wish we could get back to having civil discourse about that and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, we hate to see people fighting. And I think we all want to advance. We all obviously want to come out of COVID-19.
It's fun in WWE to watch people fighting.
Of course.
They do it for a living. Right. Sorry to interrupt.
You're out the ring, right?
Right.
That is great to see you. And thank you for laying that out. And then also let's talk about it. So COVID-19 is a health pandemic. As a member of the Knox County Board of Health, I know you probably got a lot of questions about this, but you most recently reportedly voted against a COVID-19 mask mandate for people inside public buildings, according to the Knoxville News Sentinel. So can you kind of talk more about the situation and just your thoughts surrounding the mask mandate?
And sure, and it's not that, now it's almost like you have anti-mask and mask factions.
Two sides, right?
Yeah, and that doesn't have anything to do with my decision. My decision was based on public policy and, the fact that I don't like government mandating a lot of things. And this is also, I think everyone's going to tell you around the country, it's very hard to enforce. We're wasting resources for law enforcement and other government agencies to enforce this mandate, and it's going to make people really mad. So in that respect, mine wasn't, a public health decision.
Right.
It was based on what I believe public policy, the best public policy. As far as masks, I think that people should do everything they possibly can to protect themselves and to protect their neighbors, especially people that are in the vulnerable populations. That means good hygiene. That means,
washing your hands, right?
Yeah, washing your hands often. High touch surfaces, we need to sanitize those frequently. When you're out in public, maintain physical distance and all that sort of thing. And for me here in Knox County, you have to wear a mask, but even if you're someplace where they don't mandate masks, if that's something that you feel you need to do, please, by all means, do it. Don't shame people who don't, but also the people who don't wear masks, don't shame the people that do, and when a business says that you have to enter this business, you have to wear a mask or whoever, you have to respect that because that's their property.
Right, that's their property. And I like that you gave both sides, right? There's a lot going on with face masks. I don't know if you saw the video. Bill Nye came out with the video saying why we should wear face masks. But, there's obviously just a lot of conversation around it. Because I think, honestly, at the end of the day, Mayor Jacobs, I think we're all just trying to get out of COVID-19. It's been disheartening, though. I feel like you've probably seen some of those social media videos, right? Where people are literally fighting in stores over face masks.
Exactly. And again, that's very disheartening to me. And I really worry about where our country's headed. Because it's like, gosh, it's and here in our county too, people just went ballistic over this on both sides. People were mad at me for voting against it. And again, I'm not saying don't wear a mask. I'm just saying, the government shouldn't mandate that, but then other people are like, well, they mandated this and we ain't going to do it. And if someone tries, it's like, let's all just take a deep breath here. And as you said, realize, overall, no one wants to see anyone get sick. No one wants to see anyone die, and we can work together to get through this. And frankly, we're going to have to, because we're all in it together.
Exactly. We're all in it together. That's the message I think that needs to go forward. And as you talk about that, as it pertains to President Donald Trump, just overall, can you share your insightful thoughts on his tenure in the Oval Office and, of course, his impact and even legacy as it relates to the economy, right? That's the big question during this time in our country at this current juncture.
I think like a lot of people, a lot of the policies that, especially the economic policies that President Trump has put forth, I very much agree with. I wish someone would take away his phone so he couldn't tweet. And I think that's the issue that really, is really divisive. Isn't the policies themselves? It's just, President Trump's a fighter. I mean, he was in the New York real estate scene, and that's what they do. But certainly as a country, I wish we could be more united. And that's one of the not only the amount of deaths and the health damage that COVID-19 has done, but also the economic damage and how we're going to recover from that. I mean, we were, the economy was doing so well. And, now with unemployment, we're seeing near Great Depression levels. And that's a major concern of mine, because the economy impacts public health as well. I mean, we know that when people are more affluent, when they have more money to spend, they go to the doctor, they're able to take care of themselves better. They eat better. They get better nutrition. So the economy, to me, is a public health issue. So how do we get that back on track? And as far as President Trump, it's, again, I agree with many of his policies. And and I often say, people blame him for all the divisiveness. And I think that was happening before he came along. So I don't know if he's necessarily, I don't think he's necessarily to blame. I think he's kind of a product of it. And he really thrives off of the fight. And, at this point, that's, the country needs to be unified. And hopefully moving forward, we can do that.
Yeah, we need to, right? There's just so much division. And then you kind of touched on it, but like, I would love to hear from you with regards to the current situation. Let's say in Knox County specifically, can you talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and
Sure.
some of the initiatives which have engaged throughout the community in Knox County that we've seen?
Sure. And here in Knox County, things have actually gone very well. We've had some peaceful protests, and of course, I encourage people to do that.
Right.
You have a right which is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution,
Right.
to protest, to redress government for your grievances,
Right.
to assemble. You have all those things. When it gets out of hand, that's a different situation. But here in Knox County, we have not had that. In fact, and I think this is true a lot of places.
Right.
The folks that are actually doing the protesting are not the same people. And we saw this in Knox County because we had some small incidents. It wasn't the same people. The people that were protesting went home, and then other people showed up to cause problems and to destroy property. So I think, and that's one thing that the media kind of just says protesters, and I don't like that because the protesters are engaged in legitimate activity.
Right. Fighting
These
for
other
change.
people. Yeah, these other people are vandals and they're criminals, and they should differentiate between the two. Again, when we look at Knox County, unfortunately, with one of the things that we've done in my administration is we have a diversity development manager, and his job is to work with especially small business, minority-owned small businesses, female-owned small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, people with disabilities, just to help them understand like the opportunities that are out there, how they can take advantage of things, make sure that they're able to work with the county through our procurement, because that's important for a lot of businesses that they get a fair shake, because unfortunately we're a bureaucracy and we do our best, but if you don't know how to navigate that, it can be intimidating. But one thing that we found is there's actually not a whole lot of minority owned businesses in the county. Because we don't have a large African American population here. So to me, the key is really it's entrepreneurship, it's small business, it's promoting a culture of ownership and entrepreneurship. I'm big on career and technical education and the trades. I think those are tremendous opportunities now. And I think especially for minority youngsters, that can be life-changing, because if you can develop a skill or a trade, whatever it is, HVAC, carpentry, electricians, plumbers, even now in computer science, and you can develop that, and then you combine that with some entrepreneur skills and some business skills, and you start your own business, you can write your own ticket, and you can also change your community because you can have impact employing people in your community. So for me, it's really about the economic opportunity, and that's what we need to promote.
I love that, the economic opportunity, right? People are hurting now. And I like what you're saying about, bringing those skills back. My parents, they got to have those classes in school. Now we're taking them out of schools. We don't have as many opportunities to learn those very important skills. And I really appreciate you touching on the Black Lives Matter movement. I know in more recent news for your state, the State Capitol Commission voted 9-2 Thursday to remove the bust of Confederate General and KKK leader Nathan Bedford Forrest from the State Capitol building, basically in a move to try to, I think, ease racial tensions. So now it's going to be overseen by the Capitol complex. It's been voted to move to the Tennessee State Museum in Nashville. You voted in favor of this, and I'd love to have the audience share why.
Well, I didn't vote in favor of it, but I was supportive of that move. And that's long been, unfortunately, just a point of division within our state. That bus was put there in 1973. It's put there in 78. I think it was voted on in 73 to put it there. So people talk about it being historic. Well, I mean, it's not that historic.
Right. It's not that old.
Right. Exactly. And it's what it symbolizes. I mean, at the end of his life, Bedford Forrest actually had a reconciliation and argued in favor of racial equality, but still it's the symbol of what the guy was. And the guy was a KKK Grand Wizard. And that has no place in that particular spot. I mean, I do think that we have to remember our history, and I think putting it in a museum, especially we're going in an exhibit about the Civil War. So I think that's the appropriate place for it. But I think that we need someone in that spot that recognizes what we want people to think of when they think of Tennessee. My choice is Dolly Parton. Okay. But
Can't go wrong.
exactly. But whoever it is, it's something that all of us, every Tennessean can look at and say, give a thumbs
And
up,
be
as
proud
opposed
of.
to, as opposed to Forrest, who, you had a
Mhm.
significant portion of the population that was very upset that
Right.
that bus was there. And I can certainly understand why.
And so when you see these videos of, people toppling over statues and, lighting them on fire, what have you, I mean, how does that make you feel? Since it seems like you're saying it's an important part of history, we shouldn't go through it that way,
Right.
even if you understand that, it's a hurtful part of history.
Sure, exactly. And, we shouldn't erase history. And I certainly understand that argument.
Right.
And what the state government did with Forest is
Mhm.
they went through a lawful process to change
Right.
it, and that's what I think all of us would like to see. In many cases, leave the statue up and then put something better next to it,
Right.
or put something that, that represents a different perspective or a
Mhm.
different side. And I think that's a much better way of going about it than, than just destroying statues, in which, I mean, if you're doing that unlawfully, it's vandalism. I mean, no matter what reason it is.
Right.
So, and then there's always, there's things mean different things to different people.
Right.
You talk about
Right.
Christopher Columbus, but a lot of Italian Americans are very proud of Christopher Columbus.
Right.
So I don't think that people should be out there tearing statues down like that. I
Right.
mean, if the city wants, or whoever wants to vote, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. In many
Right.
cases, that's what I'd like to see, actually, is just put it up for a vote and see what the people want. But
Right.
I also think that, just build another statue or another monument
Mhm.
that maybe is a different perspective. So
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like you said, so I mean, because like you said, everyone's going to look at things differently. We all come from different backgrounds, right? Different experiences. And so, right, if somebody's saying, hey, that doesn't mean a lot to my culture, but this one does because this person has done a lot, then I think you're saying we can find two happy mediums, right, to keep everyone happy.
And I also think that I'm a big fan of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and those
Yeah.
people. And I realize that they did some very bad things in their life. But I think
Right.
when you look at the sum total of their life, the reason that we're here today
Mhm.
discussing these issues is because of people like them. And really the ideas that they had, were they imperfect? Yes, but it's
Right.
up to us to improve on that. So I
Right.
think that when we tear those down, we're actually tearing down that legacy. Instead of doing that, let's improve on it.
I like that. It's all about improvement and it's all about growth. And just kind of following up on that, former governor of Minnesota and, of course, WWE Hall of Famer Jesse Ventura, who we recently had on this very show, he discussed George Floyd's unfortunately murder in Minnesota. I would love for you to just kind of talk about how do you think we as a nation can hopefully find some justice in George Floyd's murder, but also move forward as we're talking about, especially when it comes to systematic racism and racial profiling, which, of course, has long plagued this very country.
Right. The George Floyd, as you called it correctly. I mean, even though it hasn't gone to court yet, I mean, it looks like murder. The guy was restrained. He was in handcuffs. He was defenseless, and that was an absolute travesty. Never should have happened. And it's. I mean, people always say, "Well, this happened beforehand." It doesn't matter. I mean, once the police have you subdued, that's the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was horrible. Of course, now with social media and with video being everywhere, we actually see those things, and it has a huge emotional impact on people, as it should. I do believe that our country has come a long way. But we also have to remember that segregation was only a couple generations ago.
Yeah.
So those wounds are still there. And when we talk about, police reform and criminal justice reform, again, I think part of it goes back to just the economics of the situation. And, the fact that when we're looking at, say, African-American communities, in many cases, they're not as affluent as other communities. And it leads to more encounters with the police, in which case these things can happen. They shouldn't. There's no excuse for that. Don't get me wrong. But anytime you do have an encounter, something could happen. Overall, I'm a big proponent of criminal justice reform and things like, when we look at the policy of qualified immunity, which essentially gives the police immunity for illegal acts if they haven't been proved to be unconstitutional, that needs to end, or at least we really need to look strongly at that and figure out how we can protect the public. I believe in body cams here in Knox County. I'm not over the county sheriff. He's his independent office. We've had body cams for 5 years. And that protects not only the public, it also protects our officers.
Right.
And I heard a story, it's kind of anecdotal, you know, but heard about this one officer when he came out the body cams, he was mad, he didn't want to do it. And then within a couple of weeks, he was accused of something, and the body cam evidence showed that he didn't do what he was accused of. So it helps both sides. It provides accountability over the police, but it also helps protect the police. In Louisville, Breonna Taylor, who was killed in Louisville, that was a no-knock warrant. And a no-knock warrant is basically where the police, who are usually heavy armed SWAT team, kick in the door and just come in guns drawn. That happens more often than we might think about because they, in her case, they got a wrong address.
And
you know, that's
she lost her life.
Right. Exactly. Well, the Fourth Amendment protects us from that sort of thing. So I'd like to see that revisited, if not eliminated. You know, there might be a place when you say you have to send a SWAT team in, but again, I forget the exact statistic, but it actually happens tens of thousands of times every year in this country. It's way. It should only be used in hostage situations and that sort of thing. You know, and then there are other things as well. You know, I think when we look at federal laws like the mandatory minimums and those sort of things, and also, you know, the sentencing for nonviolent offenders. Those have a disproportionate impact on minority populations, but they hurt everyone. They especially hurt people who can't, you know, hire a great defense lawyer. Okay, so you know, those are all the things that we really need to look at with our justice system, and not only when we're looking at the African American and minority population, but really for everybody. And all of our protection and the protection of our law enforcement officers as well.
Exactly. It goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. We're just trying to move forward. And I think that's what you're talking about. And, you know, I'm glad that you offered your perspective on that. I think it was very insightful. And now I just want to switch over to education, because I think education also plays a big role in this. So with regards to Knox County, can you touch on the educational related endeavors which you're currently embarking on?
Sure. We have a great organization here. It's a public-private partnership. It's called, now it used to be the Great Schools Partnership. Now it's the Knox County Education Foundation. And they do some great work we have community schools here, which they've identified some schools which are really community hubs. They have a program that they started called Parents as Teachers, which now our health department has actually taken over through a state grant, and some others. So, and their mandate is to find innovative ways to help our young folks and to help the school system. So that's a great, really great organization, and it's unique to Knox County. Reading is vitally important, and we've found that across the country, we really have a literacy epidemic. Only about a third of our third graders read at grade level nationwide. And the reason third grade is so important is because third grade is when you go from learning to read to reading to learn. And everything you do throughout your academic career, really throughout your life, reading it's foundational, because my brother's an auto mechanic, but he's got to read manuals. Right. So no matter what you do, even if it's in the technical fields, you still have to read well. And what happens if a kid is behind at third grade? They have a lot of trouble catching up. So we started a program called Read City USA. You can go visit it at readcityusa.com. You can't participate unless you're a Knox County resident. But nevertheless,
now.
That'd be great. But nevertheless, it encourages people to read by logging their reading hours. And then we have a ticker that tells us how many hours we've read as a community. And before COVID-19 hit, we were doing all sorts of fun things and events and prizes and that sort of thing based upon the goals that we reached. But still, we're doing really well. This year, our goal was to read 500,000 hours as a community. That means that everybody, who goes to readcityusa.com, they download this app on their smartphone called the Beanstack Tracker app, and then they can automatically, when they start reading something, they just log into the app and it'll track their hours. And then that goes into our website, which aggregates all that. So for this year, our goal is to read 500,000 hours. That's 20 times around the world. It's 20 the 500,000 hours equates to 500,000 miles, which is 20 times around the world. So it's
Wow.
20 in 2020.
Yeah.
We're already at 442,000
Oh,
hours.
that's awesome. Yeah.
So we're 82% of the way there.
Awesome.
My staff is going to kill me because at some point I want to say, well, we're halfway to 1 million. Why don't we just go all the way for 1 million? They've told me not to say that in public, so this is the first time I'm going to say that.
Thank you for saying it on this show.
But the whole idea is just to get people excited, especially younger folks, excited about reading. I think, and this is just me, but I think what has happened is that there's so many other forms of entertainment now that people just don't read like they used to. My mom and dad were big readers. I lived out in the country. We didn't even have cable TV. I mean, that's all we really had to do.
The way of life.
But now there's just so much that I don't think people read like they used to. And unfortunately, that does have an impact on education.
Exactly. I appreciate you touching on that. And Mayor Jacobs, you're getting so many questions. I just want to take this one because it relates to education. What is your point of view towards the push of reopening schools in the fall during a pandemic? I know it's a big topic of conversation.
It is, and it actually is up to the various states because they're all in different positions. And states, they're the ones in charge of schools. I would certainly like to see schools open back up. I think what we're going to do in Knox County is we're going to have a hybrid model where we can have either online or in a school, actually in-person education. Some of the teachers I understand are nervous about coming back, and I understand that. When we look at the pandemic and its impact on young people, that's really negligible. Most young folks are not, they don't even really get sick. So that's not an issue, but for the teachers it is, and I understand that. As I said, here in Knox County, I think we're probably going to do a hybrid model. Part of the issue that we have, frankly, though, is again, when we look at economic and income disparities, that requires that the family have high-speed internet. Not everybody in Knox County does. So one of the things that we've, again, working through the Knox Education Foundation is, how, and our private partners, is how can we get more high-speed internet out there so that the kids whose families choose not to send them to school can still partake, which might be difficult. And we don't want, part of the issue with all of this and the pandemic is that the kids have been out of school now, 5 months?
For a while now,
Yeah, and over the summer, you'll see it's kind of a regression, as students are home and they aren't studying as much and they aren't in school. When they come back, there has to be some work done to catch up. Well, that's just going to be exacerbated now that we have a 5-month span. And I'm also worried about our at-risk kids because here in Knox County, and I'm sure it's true of a lot of other places, the organizations that normally work with those kids, they haven't been able to bring them in. Because of the guidelines, they haven't been able to serve as many of those kids as normal. So a lot of the work that they've done with those children has been lost. So I think it is important that in some form or fashion, we do get kids back to school.
Yeah, we just want them to learn, right? I think, we're all just trying to find the safest way, but I appreciate you offering insight on that. And then, of course, since you are a former wrestler, what about the athletics? Are you going to miss sports, high school sports and everything?
Well, the Ivy League just canceled their season. I guess the Big 10, is the Big 10 now? I'll use the Big 12.
Yeah, you got it right. Big 10.
Okay, Big 10, sorry. When I was growing up, I grew up in Missouri. It was the Big 8.
Yeah.
It was Missouri and Nebraska and Oklahoma, and the Big 10 were like the bad guys. But I think the Big 8 is now the Big 12. Anyway, I'm very confused. Anyway, but I guess the Big 10 is not doing non-conference play. Actually had a call the other day with the University of Tennessee, Coach Phil Fulmer, who won the national championship in 1998 in football. It's the AD now. But and just into their thinking of what they're going to do going forward, the different scenarios that they have in mind. That UT football has a huge impact on our local economy. I mean, it is just massive. And we don't know what football is going to look like this year at the University of Tennessee because it's too early to tell. And the SEC is going to have some say in that. And that could have a massive impact on our local economy. So it's not just it's
not just a product on the field, right?
Yeah, it's not just the entertainment aspect for me. It's also the economic impact or hopefully not, but potentially the lack thereof that really concerns me.
I know. It's just crazy to think about. But again, we're all trying to just get through
Yeah,
this together.
And we have a AA baseball team. I think they're part of the Cubs organization, but they're the Tennessee Smokies.
Yeah.
They're not having a season this year. I take my granddaughter up there and watch games.
Yeah.
So just all of those things, it's just a weird time.
I know. We're all trying to figure it out together. But again, I think we're all just trying to get through it safely. We're trying to save lives. And it's crazy without sports. I get it. Look, I'm a sports reporter, but look, we'll make it. We'll make it through. We'll make it through.
So even for me, I haven't been going to the gym because you have to wear a mask in the gym, or you have to stay like 12 feet apart.
Right.
And I just haven't been comfortable, not because I don't want to work out, but I can't. Frankly, I wouldn't be able to work out with a mask on my face, because I breathe way too heavy for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I've been, every day I get up at whatever time and I walk about 45 minutes and then I do push-ups. And then everybody's saying, man, you look great. You're in the best shape of your life. I was like, man, I should have done this all along. But I'm not going to tell the people at the gym that, but in any case, all these different things that are impacting us, and trying to figure out how to deal with it. And as you said, how do we get through it safely and all of us together.
I appreciate that. Look, I haven't been to the gym in a while, so look, we're making shift. I have water bottles and everything else I need to use to try to get some type of weight on my body. And also, just talking about you, could you talk about the success of the Jacobs Insurance Company, which you founded?
Actually, I sold that, but my wife does real estate. Does that count?
Which is even better. Yes. Look, if you put the wife love, you're going to be a happy man when you go home.
She is. She has a company, it's East Tennessee Real Estate. And it's really wild. The real estate market here in East Tennessee, it's doing great. Despite the fact that we've taken such an economic hit, the real estate market is it's really hot. If you're a seller.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you're a buyer, it stinks. Yeah. But when something goes on the market, I mean, it's just gone.
Right?
Yeah. Wow. Especially in the $250,000 $300,000 price range, which is kind of our
my ears here in DC.
Yeah. That's kind of our, that's kind of our sweet spot. And that's kind of our, middle class price point here.
Wow.
But yeah, things are going real well for her in that area. But it's weird because you think that it's a great market for her, but she has to work so hard, and then she loses a deal because even though her people come in over market, over asking price, someone else comes in and throws even more money at it. It's wild. Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm glad her business is doing very well. I know you are a happy man. And Mayor Jacobs, of course, I couldn't have you on the show if we didn't talk a little bit of wrestling, so I hope you don't mind.
Yes, please.
We can start with, in regards to your legendary WWE career, can you just reveal your personal, let's say, top 3 matches of all time in your Hall of Fame career, and why?
My own?
Yes, your own one.
My own. It would, my favorite match was against Stone Cold Steve Austin at King of the Ring in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1998.
Yeah.
That was when I won my first world championship. Of course, that was the same night that Undertaker faced Mick Foley in the infamous Hell in a Cell match where Mick was Mankind at the time, but where Mick went off the cage and then through the cage and became a legend. He'd been pretty close before that, but that was really what put him over the top. And I'm still mad at Mick because I won the world championship, but all anybody remembers about that night was the Hell in a Cell match. But my next favorite would be when my first WrestleMania match against Undertaker, which was earlier, with the year before, would have been April in Boston in 1998. That was the culmination of the storyline between Undertaker and Kane. So it was really important. And it's my first WrestleMania, which is awesome.
Which is always great.
Yeah. And then the next one was actually the next pay-per-view after that, which was the Inferno match in Greensboro, North Carolina, again, between Undertaker and me. First time that match had ever been done in WWE history. And was just really happy. I thought the Inferno part of the match was really neat and everything, but I thought the match itself was superb.
I love it. And I want to keep with wrestling with you, but I have to ask you this question from a fan. I think they really like you, Mayor Jacobs. You plan to run for president one day. Are we going to see you in the Oval Office?
No, absolutely not. Why would you wish that on anyone? No, and I think that does bring up a very important point, though. We all pay attention to the presidency and the federal government. But your state and local governments are really, really important too.
Right.
And I wish more people would realize that state and local government can have as much impact on your life as the federal government does. And unfortunately, like what we see in Knox County is during presidential elections, we see huge numbers of voters, and then it just drops off completely when it comes to local elections. In fact, unfortunately, in Tennessee, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts in the country. And that is just, and I mean, we do everything that we can to try to get people out to vote. But, when it comes, and I think a lot of it is because we seem to have a state and local election about every year. But nevertheless, it is really important that people are aware and vote in those elections as well.
Right. And just going off of that, let's go back, Mayor Jacobs, to August 2nd, 2018, when you defeated Democratic opponent Linda Haney by a vote of 51,804 to 26,224. You got 66.39% of the vote to be elected as the mayoral seat of Knox County, Tennessee, as a Republican. With regards to entering the political realm, can you discuss the benefactors and just slight disadvantages which you've kind of experienced firsthand?
Sure. First of all, with both my primary and my general election, I was very fortunate to have honorable opponents. And both of those campaigns are really clean. And I hope that we're all friends now. One of my Republican opponents is actually on county commission, and he's just I have just utmost respect for him. He's a great commissioner and a real asset to Knox County. But I was just happy that, you hear so many horror stories about elections and about campaigns and the dirty things that go on. And there wasn't much of that in ours. And I'm really happy for myself and my family, but also for the people of Knox County, because I know that I don't like seeing that sort of stuff. And it was just great to, to actually come away. And of course, it's competition, so you want to win, but it's also nice to come away and not thinking, man, gosh, I'll never, ever do that again.
Exactly.
We did a disservice to the public. Exactly. And for the most part, it was a positive experience.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. For me specifically, I had people that wanted me to downplay the wrestling stuff, and I couldn't do that because
that's who you are.
That's who I am. And I couldn't suddenly morph into something that I wasn't. But I think it kind of got my foot in the door in that I was a novelty, so I could get press and I could get media, and people wanted to talk to me. But I also had to make sure that they knew that I was serious about this and that I knew that what I was talking about and all those sorts of things. So it was a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, people, it's a novelty. On the other hand, you don't want to rely on that because you're not going to win. And certainly you don't want to do the people that you're hoping to serve a disservice by saying, well, he's a celebrity and he won because people know the name and all that stuff. So it was, had to play that right down the middle and do the best I could of convincing people that I did know what I was talking about and I was serious about this.
I love it. Again, we're glad to have you in the mayoral seat. Everyone keeps sending a bunch of questions. I'll go back to one of your last answers that a fan wants to know. Here we go. Speaking of the Inferno match, I heard you actually burned your hand. Is this true?
A little bit. It's actually my arm. And as I was backing into the flames, I had one arm which was protected, which is the one that was lit on fire. But as I was backing into the flames, I didn't burn it. I hit it on the grate that the fire was coming out of. So it was like touching a hot stove.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't bad, but I will tell you that it is a surreal experience to look at your hand and see it on fire.
I'm sure. That's now.
Right. And that whole thing was, it was just an amazing experience, actually. We were supposed to rehearse it the night before, but some travel issues prevented that from happening. So the day of the match, we had actually brought in some stunt people, stunt coordinators from Hollywood to work with us on this, because I mean WWE wants to be everybody to be safe, and they don't want anyone to get hurt, of course. So anyway, the first time we actually did a burn, we were standing outside the arena, and they do all this stuff to protect me, and then put an accelerant on, and so I'm just standing there, my hands on fire, and this is just like wow. And then of course, they're like, okay, I go to turn one, and they're like, don't do that, don't turn that way, because you have to keep it behind you because you don't want to inhale the flames, and then as soon as you feel any sort of tingling, you just fall to the ground, because once your flesh starts tingling, that means that all the coolant is gone, and you're about 2 seconds away from third-degree burns, right? So I'm like, okay. Well, imagine though, I have to go out and do a wrestling match, and then I also have to keep in mind at the end of it we have to do this stuff. And that's the thing about WWE that I think really separates it from virtually every other form of entertainment is you can be out there doing a match, and then afterwards you have to do a promo or you have to do a stunt, and all these things are going on at the same time. So you have to be able to multitask as an entertainer. And it's it can be challenging, and at times it can be really hair-raising.
Oh my! I'm sure. Look, you are better than me because anything with fire, I am staying far away from. But this is why you are Mayor Jacobs and on this show. And actually, just going off of that, talking about safety in WWE, I love this question from a fan. Do you think the WWE would be able to safely do live events in the near future? If so, how do you think that could be done, say, in a place like Nashville or maybe Memphis?
That I don't know. I really don't have any insight. I'm sorry.
I know it's hard to put you on the spot.
And a lot of that is actually under the purview of the state and local governments,
right.
And whether they will allow that. When we look at WWE again, they have a medical staff, and they do take the safety of their entertainers and their fans very seriously. So I don't know. I mean, I certainly think that everybody wants that to happen.
Right.
But how do you do that? Like when even when we're talking about larger events, when we start moving in that direction, it's probably going to be in front of arenas that can't be at full capacity, and they probably have things like temperature checks for fans, and limited concessions and no touch points. So there's a lot that goes into that.
Wow. And that just tells you, right. It's not an easy question. It's hard, but I appreciate you offering insight. And believe me, I know everybody just wants to know. And I want to stay with WWE. With regards to WWE, could you talk about just your thoughts regarding WrestleMania 36, which went ahead this year, and whether the Showcase of the Immortals should have been canceled in hindsight, especially given the current circumstances?
No, I don't think so. Because I think people need entertainment. They need distractions. When things like this are going on, and WWE provides that. It's a very valuable service, and I mean, look, if WrestleMania had been completely canceled, I probably would have moved to a deserted island because I really think but in all seriousness, I am glad that they did go on, and I think it was very unique, and it also some of the things that they were able to do because of the circumstances,
right.
Were innovative and extraordinary. I think that the match between Undertaker and AJ Styles was amazing. So I think that they took a bad situation and made the best that they could out of it.
I love it. I love it. And I appreciate you giving your thoughts on that. And I completely agree. I think, look, they made the best of what it was. We're in a different time period. You kind of have to adjust your expectations. And then just staying on WWE, can you just talk about WWE's, just their lucrative partnership with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
Sure.
And the experience that you felt from Saudi fans when you, of course, performed in the main event at the WWE Royal Crown Jewel 2018 when the Brothers of Destruction faced Degeneration X?
Well, when we look at WWE, and it's odd to think of it this way, but we really are ambassadors in some cases to the world. And remember when we did that show in Saudi Arabia, the night before, they had a party for for VIPs and for fans.
Yeah.
And there was a 5-year-old. He was a Saudi prince. Now in Saudi Arabia, there's lots of princes.
5-year-old prince. Wow, I'm jealous.
But nevertheless, he's a 5-year-old prince, and he's dressed as the Undertaker. Okay. So I'm thinking to myself, here I am in Saudi Arabia, which there's this huge cultural gulf and this huge cultural divide, but we're all speaking a similar language. We're all speaking the same language. Right. And then you saw that the next day at the show, and people didn't care. They didn't care. They were just happy to be at a WWE event. Right. They had women as working in the stadium, which had never happened before.
Yeah, that's
And
huge.
of course, later they would have a female match in one of the crown jewel events.
Right.
So I think that all those things, they really are. They really do help people come together. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I guess Rocky IV.
Yeah.
When Rocky and Drago have the fight, and at the end of the fight, the Russian fans are chanting for Rocky, and then he gets up and says, "Look, we're all people."
Exactly.
And I think that's what WWE and other sports as well. They're really able to bridge, in many cases, cultural divides and gaps. Recently, I was talking with someone from the University of Tennessee who had worked with Pat Summitt, and Pat Summitt used to go. I'm sorry, Pat didn't, but her foundation, this lady, they would go to the Middle East and they would promote women's basketball in the Middle East.
Wow.
Okay. So again, they're reaching across the culture divide. When we think about the Middle East, we don't necessarily think about that as a great place for women's athletics, right?
Right.
But they were able to do that.
That's so awesome.
So it's bigger than WWE. It's all of sports. But I think that sports really can have a unifying effect on human beings, because it gives us something outside of our cultures.
Exactly. It brings us together.
Brings us together.
That's right. I feel like that's why I love sporting events. That's why I love covering sports, Mary Jacobs, because it doesn't matter, who's next to you for those couple of hours. You're rooting for that same team. You're cheering.
As long as you're not an Alabama fan.
Of course not. We don't accept that here on the show. I love it. I love it. And Mary Jacobs, I really appreciate your time. So before I let you go, lastly, Mayor, The Undertaker, of course, most recently officially announced his retirement from the WWE. Other than The Undertaker's unprecedented, 30-year body of WWE contributions, can you talk about Mark, the man, and some of the great times and moments you've shared traveling the world together over so many years?
Well, it's no secret that if it wasn't for Undertaker, there wouldn't be a Kane.
Yeah.
So I owe him a lot. I owe him my career. My first match against him was actually here in Knox. So I'm looking at the building right now. It's at the Civic Coliseum.
Oh, that's so awesome.
When I was at Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I think he saw something in me there, and he was always a huge advocate of mine. When I was having trouble in WWE, when I initially got there, he was the person that pulled me aside and coached me through some things and helped me out. He was my liaison that would always go and talk to Vince and just help me in that respect. I remember one time when I was upset about something, and I go talk to Vince McMahon about it, and then he said, "Well, Mark's already been here to talk to me about it, and I think he worries more about you than he does himself." But for me, that just tells me the kind of person that he is, and the impact that he had backstage. And that's what true leadership is. It's leading by example. And he always did that. When we were Brothers of Destruction, we spent a lot of time together on the road. Yeah. Now I'm happy for him. He's got a family, and he seems to be really happy with everything and how things have turned out. So it couldn't happen to a better person.
Oh, thank you so much for going on that. I think it's such an important moment. It's so candid. And I'm sure he'll appreciate hearing that from you. I know it will mean a lot. Mayor, to thank you so much for your time. You have so many questions, but look, I can't keep you all night, as I know on the show. But thank you so much. And before I let you go, just any last words to the listening audience?
Well, just, again, this is an unprecedented time in our nation's history. Really, I think almost in the history of the world. I think that we can all exercise more kindness and more respect towards one another. And, we can come together, and we're going to get through all of this. We can be better because of it. And I think that we all have to keep that in mind. So that would just be my parting words. Kelsey, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate
everybody have a great evening.
Jacobs. And if you don't mind, I'm sorry, this question is too good to miss up on. We still haven't had the retirement match. Who do you want as the opponent?
Well, I'll tell you, just as a hint, he'd have to come out of retirement to do it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jacobs, for your time. Truly appreciate it. And please don't be a stranger to the show.
Thank you, Kelsey. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the special live stream edition of Listen In with KNN. Oh my gosh, in 9 minutes, we'll be right back here. Please be sure to join me. We'll have none other than Kurt Angle on this very show. I have to give a special shout out to my amazing, amazing, amazing team. I know it'll look like a one-person band. It's truly not. Dean Peretta, Mike Lyle Jr., Quentin Green, Onyx Lithicum. You guys are all so amazing. Thank you for making the show come. Just together each and every week. And to all the loyal listeners, thank you so much. We have a very action-packed summer for you. So hope you all will stay with me. Of course, please always use our hashtag LIWKNN or hashtag listen in with KNN. Get your thoughts and comments. We'll try to get more fan comments and more fan questions on with Kurt Angle. So 7 to 8 p.m. I'll be live with Kurt. Stay tuned, guys. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great one. Bye-bye and see you soon.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. And catch each broadcast of Listen In with KNN on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this special live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.